So guys, in this next news story, 13 members of a criminal gang have now been convicted for their roles in a Tunbridge Wells robbery which led to a man being brutally murdered. The men were all linked to a plot to steal cannabis plants from a house in Reilly Road, where they were challenged by Xhovan Pepaj, who was fatally stabbed. Kent police were called to a disturbance at the address during the early hours of the 4th of December 2021. Attending patrols found cannabis plants discarded along the road and leading up to the house. A locked metal gate from floor to ceiling initially prevented officers from accessing the upstairs of the building where Mr. Pepaj had been left, suffering multiple stab wounds. Access was secured by fire crews and the 25-year-old victim was declared deceased at the scene. I just want to say rest in peace, Mr. Pepaj, and my condolences go out to your family. A bloodstained knife was found nearby, but any suspects had fled. Over the next 24 hours, an investigation by the Kent and Essex Serious Crime Directorate led to 5 arrests. In the weeks that followed, 8 further suspects were tracked down and detained. The Crown Prosecution Service authorised charges against all 13 suspects, and due to the high number of defendants, the case was split into 2 trials at separate courts. The first trial was held in Loughborough, and it was followed by, on the 18th of May 2023, by a sentence at the Old Bailey and resulted in the following verdicts. Ciaran Stewart, was 20, from Essex, was found guilty of murder. He had previously admitted conspiracy to robbery, and he was sentenced to imprisonment and will serve a minimum of 26 years. Kelvin Amoako, who's 18, of Ilford, he was found guilty of murder and conspiracy to commit robbery, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment and will serve a minimum of 22 years. There was Bartosz Malawski, who's 28, of Croydon, was found guilty of murder and conspiracy to commit robbery. He was sentenced to life imprisonment and will serve a minimum of 22 years. Nathan Rainforth, who's 22, of Essex, he was found guilty of manslaughter and conspiracy to commit robbery, and he was sentenced to 7.5 years. There was Donte Simpson-Palmer, who's 19. He was found guilty of manslaughter and conspiracy to commit robbery, and he was sentenced to 6 years. Charles Reilly, who's 28, of Essex, was found guilty of conspiracy to commit robbery, and he was jailed for 10 years. And Mohammed Miah, who's 26, from Essex, he was found guilty of conspiracy to commit robbery, and he was sentenced to 6.5 years. So the prosecutor, during the trial, told the court that Ciaran Stewart used Pepaj's phone to ring the police and stayed on the phone for 14 minutes and 50 seconds and narrated the violence to the operator. The prosecutor said the relevance of its content extends beyond what the caller and the operator were saying to each other. One can also hear things being said in the background by others, in other words. When you hear it, you may conclude that violence is being used upon Xhovan Pepaj during that time. He's fatally attacked during that call, and Ciaran Stewart is in effect overheard talking about it.
Hello?
Hello?
Not we can knock in the house, police. We need police.
Okay, where are you?
They got a gun.
Okay, where are you?
I don't know where we are, please.
Okay, I can't send police if you don't know where they are.
I don't know where we are.
Okay, are you on a road?
No, we're in a house.
Okay, do you know what road the house is on?
No.
Okay, can you look on your phone for me and see on the map?
I have no idea where we are, please.
Okay, I can't send police to you unless you tell me where you are. Open your phone and see if you can get up a map.
Should I get the police to come here? Wrecking Road, please, they got guns.
Okay, I need you to tell me where you are.
Oh, you don't get that. Seven.
What's happening? Hello?
They're going to kill him.
The prosecutor said the gang arrived at the house in a convoy of cars in the middle of the night, determined to snatch a valuable crop of cannabis plants. The prosecutor said this was a small, obscure house in a town in Kent, and yet it was correctly targeted for what it was, an attack by a large group of men from many miles away in another county. As they broke in at around 3:30 in the morning, Mr. Pepaj made a brief call to his associates who turned up at the house 10 minutes later in 2 cars. The prosecutor said the ingredients now existed for a serious violent confrontation between members of 2 organised crime groups, the cannabis growers from Kent, who arrived in 2 vehicles, and those raiders from Essex who were still in the house. He said that the Albanians were unable to get past a locked gate which had been installed at the top of the stairs to protect the cannabis grow. Mr. Pepaj was trapped behind it with Amoako, Stewart and Malawski. After stabbing Mr. Pepaj, The three of them jumped out of an upstairs window and made their escape from the Albanians and the police. The prosecutor said a few minutes later, Amoako sent a Snapchat message to a friend in which he said, "I've just basically killed someone."
For right now, man is in the mood. I'm just had to just basically kill someone. Yeah. And there's outlaws out there looking for me right now. I don't know what I am. I'm probably gonna die tonight, but I love you.
Amoako then made a 999 call to the police and told them, "I fell asleep in a fella's car and Albanians pulled us out and I'll run for my life. I don't know where I am." The prosecutor said the jury would have to decide if the 5 men on trial had been part of a conspiracy to rob, which involved the use of or threat of violence, and if they were guilty of murder or manslaughter. But obviously, we now know there was other defendants as well. Guys, I've been through the sentencings with regards to the first trial, and in this second trial, Ray Render, who's 23, from Brentwood in Essex, he pleaded guilty to counts of manslaughter and conspiracy to commit robbery. And there's Jonathan Hedges, who's 26, from Romford, Nathan Turner, who's 30, of Worley, Zach Cutting, who's 25, of Waltham Abbey, Glenn Howe, who's 52, of Pilgrim's Hatch, and Fabian Seismuller, who's 21, of Essex. And a jury all found them yesterday guilty of conspiracy to rob, and they were found not guilty of manslaughter. So sentencing for these men is going to be taking place at the end of October. Detective Superintendent Gavin Moss said the brutal murder of Mr. Pepaj was the result of a planned raid by an organised criminal gang who travelled to Tunbridge Wells from Essex in 3 vehicles to steal large quantities of cannabis. Things started to go wrong when associates of the victim, the Albanians, arrived at the property, and this quickly escalated with tragic consequences. Ciaran Stewart called 999 in fear of his life and was heard by the call handler shouting to Amoako to stab Mr. Pepaj. The victim was repeatedly attacked with a knife and beaten and stood no chance of defending himself. It says a lot about their mentality that as some of the offenders drove from the scene, they appeared oblivious to the fact someone had just been murdered and instead filmed themselves bragging and laughing about the drugs they had stolen. He said we have worked relentlessly to ensure every single offender involved in this incident has faced justice, and the lengthy prison sentence reflect the senseless loss of life and needless violence associated with the supply of drugs. So guys, what a crazy story this is. A group of lads, 13 of them, drove up to rob an Albanian gang's crop. To be honest, guys, I've never heard that before. Criminals who are literally in the act of robbing someone's grow then turn civilian and phone the police. Used to come and help them. Absolute madness. Once again, I just want to say rest in peace, Mr. Pepaj, and my condolences go out to your family. Guys, once again, if you already haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel and please like this video. It's your boy GC. Keep it locked, keep it real.